It is our second town hall with, this time, Republican candidate Chase Stevens and VP Maddie Melendez. Voters are watching these town halls to decide who they will vote for in 2020. It's been an exciting election season, and we wish all candidates good luck.
Yeah.
And we're sharing all candidates' ideas.
Yeah.
And let's have a good one, folks.
Yeah. All right. Yo, okay.
All right. So, first question
Oh my god.
goes to Chase Stevens.
Thank God.
Yep.
Why did you pick your VP?
Well, for a few reasons. First is that I'm an outsider campaign, and I believe my vice president nominee should represent that. Now, she's never participated in politics. She's a businesswoman. And, you know, I think she'll do a great job helping us push our outsider and pro-business agenda. But alongside with that, she's also a woman of color. And if elected, she will become the first woman of color to ever be in the White House as a vice president. Now, that is a huge step for equality. That's a huge step for civil rights. And as a lot of people are worried about me, saying that, you know, I won't stand for civil rights. Well, my vice president is both a woman of color and a woman. So she'll be right there alongside me trying to fight for equal rights among both sexes and among all races.
All right, among both sexes and both races. That is your justification. Now, let's go to VP candidate Maddie Melendez. If Mr. Stevens were president and he could no longer serve as president, you know, something happened to him, how would you faithfully execute the presidency of the United States?
Okay, so you're saying if he like died or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I know the policies that he has ensued, and I know my basis of rights that I have for the US and everyone together. So I think personally that I will have a great job executing the right laws, the right rights for America. And that's what we want. We want someone like Chase Stevens or myself to put out the equal circumstances for everybody. And that's why.
All right. Chase Stevens, what's your tax plan?
So it's very simple. Right now we have a thousands and thousands of page tax code. I want to be able to make it only 15% of what it currently is, of course, with rules and regulation. But alongside that, I want every American to only pay 1/10. Now, of course, existing tax credits will exist. We'll cut a few of those backward, but the majority of those, you won't have to pay more in taxes. But for the majority of Americans, and I'm talking about the 80% of Americans that right now overpay in taxes, are going to get a tax cut, right? If you make above around $25,000, you are at least getting a 5% tax cut. Some people even getting a 20% tax cut. And that's going to be great for the nation because you have these business owners. You know, something my opponents will say is the business owners and the corporations, they're all bad guys. Now, well, yes, they do some shady things and they're always motivated by profit. That's a good thing because guess what? With that money, they don't just hoard it. They invest it. They create jobs. They create wealth. They create innovation. You know, we wouldn't have this wonderful debate stage, all of its amenities, of course, the giant TV screen behind me, unless we had companies putting money, having money to innovate, to create fantastic new products, to create fantastic new jobs. You know, the job that some of us in this room who are watching right now wouldn't exist 50 years ago if it weren't for the innovation of these companies. So that's my tax plan, and that's why I'm fighting for it.
All right. So let's go to President Hay. As you know, President Hay has resigned from being president. What did you think of his presidency? You know, obviously, there's a lot of controversy considering that, you know, he was the first president to resign since Richard Nixon?
Well, I'd have to say now, there was one of my political opponents just a few moments ago, before I was assaulted by him, and I'll go into that in a second, who was saying that Troy Hay was some tyrant, who was a corporatist, and all these bad things. To me, I think Troy Hay is a lot like Jimmy Carter. Troy and I have a lot of disagreements. I think I don't really agree with him on the policy side at all. I would probably do a lot of the opposite of what he did. But at least he was trying to do the right thing. And that's why so many Americans voted for him. But I think it's important now that we can't afford another 4 years of the nice guy in office. We need someone who's going to get down to business, someone who will push the positive reforms that we all need, who won't take another step back with the Troy Hay-like policies where we have higher taxes, where we have more tax on companies, where we have more regulations. We have to be able to push us into forward for progress, not for the government, not for bureaucracy, but you, the American people.
All right. So Sunday night, I was talking with Robert Sanders, and he said, I was like, so apparently every candidate wants change, right? And he said, well, Chase Stevens would basically be more of the same except worse.
Lies.
So
That
what
is
is
not
your
true.
take on what change you will bring, and why shouldn't we believe that the other sides will not bring about much needed change just as you have?
Well, Mr. Sanders is one of the same tree as Troy Hay. Mr. Sanders loves to insult Troy Hay as one. But let's look at what Troy Hay's done. He's increased regulation. He's raised the minimum wage, which has been terrible for businesses. He's raised taxes, right? Those are all the three main policy agendas that Mr. Sanders wants to achieve. Now, I think I would actually reapply what he said to him. See, Troy Hay has policies, nothing really like me, right? I want increased border security. I want more respect for our veterans. I want lower taxes. I want more economic freedom. My opponent wants the opposite. He wants higher taxes. He wants more regulation. He wants more entitlements and higher wages. Those are all things that the previous president stood for, and that's the reason why we have an unemployment rate of 8%. That's why we have an inflation rate of around 4%. That's why we're in a recession right now. It's because the policies like Robert Sanders, like Troy Hay, like Mayowa Olabode, they all endorse those policies. What I'm going to be is I'm going to be actual change. I'm going to turn the United States around to be able to provide positive reforms, to be able to provide the things that people really need, trusting the American people with their own money, trusting the American people to be able to create jobs, wealth, and ingenuity. That's why I'm the change candidate. My opponents are nothing close to it.
Facts. Hail Jesus. Hallelujah.
All right. Next thing goes for
What the hell?
running mate Manny Melendez. So as you know, you're not only the vice president of the United States, you are the president of the Senate. You break tie votes.
Yeah.
So what disagreements do you have with Chase Stevens, and how will you two work together?
I can only say that I think we have good connection with our mind. I feel like we have the same views and policies, but the only thing I'll have to disagree on is probably, I don't know. I think what we need to change is minimum wage. And that's probably the only thing I disagree on. But Chase holds a good point, although I do have to look over that so I can really get a full understanding before I would want to change things. Because personally, I would like a higher minimum wage, not by much, but some. Although
it's $12 already, so you're saying that. So saying you want it higher than
$13.
All right.
Because I feel like I don't know. I feel bad for the people who work hard but only can get a minimum wage. But you may be saying, well, companies may go out because of that. Well, if you have a good company and you hold yourself up, then that's not going to happen. But that's my only disagreement. Other than that, I feel like we'd work very well together at the end.
All right. So next question. Chase Stevens, I've asked a lot about this. You know, Iran is a big threat now. You know, with them pulling out of the nuclear deal, it's been very scary. You know, abroad. How will you keep Iran in order?
Well, first, I will increase sanctions. You know, I want to avoid at all costs war with Iran. I mean, it would be a complete obliteration of their state. But we don't want to have to get involved in more regime-changing wars. We want to prevent nuclear weapons from being increased. The more nuclear weapons that they create, the more uranium they obtain, I will increase sanctions. And furthermore, I will instruct my UN ambassador to be able to get other nations surrounding them, because the United States has a lot of influence in the international community to also put sanctions on Iran. So they're, you know, they won't be able to really participate in the global economy with major providers of different resources, and soon their economy will stunt. Right? It won't only be the United States placing these sanctions; it'll be multiple other countries, and eventually they will re-enter a new nuclear deal that will address its missile programs, its military, and other threatening issues that we need to focus on Iran. While I don't believe that they will actually have the capacity to be able to bomb or send a nuclear missile our way, nor do I think they have the money, but I think the threat is still somewhat there. So if we're going to be able to seriously take care of this, we're going to up sanctions. And if they dare try and do anything to the American people, they will be met with a destruction that Hitler only saw.
All right. Next question. There's been a gas shortage late 2019 due to Saudi Arabia cutting trade with us, especially with oil. How will you make sure we don't have another gas shortage so that voters aren't freaking out when they have long lines at the pump?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to put less regulation on our natural gas workers. Now, all the while, I would like to subsidize the creation of nuclear energy plants and figure out how we can and subsidize the research to be able to make nuclear-powered cars. However, on the other hand, right now we have fossil fuels, and natural gas is what's going into our cars. So I would shorten regulations on that, and I would shorten business taxes for these fossil fuel companies to be able to make sure to increase the amount of gas. You know, Texas right now is the United States' #1 natural gas manufacturer in a country, and the United States is the world's #1 natural gas manufacturer. So under my presidency, we will become completely oil independent and not rely on any countries. And by doing this, we're going to up drilling, we're going to up fracking, and we'll even do it a little bit overseas. But all the while, we will still try and find those more renewable resources or nuclear energy powered cars.
Yes.
Glad you agree. And you know what, before we continue on the minimum wage issue between me and my vice presidential running mate, I have to address that I picked her specifically for the purposes of that we have a few political disagreements. Because I want to be a president for all people, even if you hate me to my core, like a lot of people do. Is that I want someone in the Oval Office with me who can say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I disagree with this, and present some arguments why. And I'm not saying, of course, with respect to my vice presidential running mate, that I'll always do everything her way or will always do everything my way. But I at least wanted that voice as my right-hand woman to be able to tell me what the opposition point of view is so I can address it and try and pass policy that is good for all Americans, whether you disagree with me or agree with me.
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's go to our next question. What do you think about our immigration system?
Okay, can I have a say in this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Horrible. Sorry. Oops. All right, passing it on.
You know what? I have to agree with her there. It's horrible. It is absolutely a fantastic mess. Is what we have at the border. The Bill Clinton era policy that separates families from children is disgusting, and it needs to end. What I believe is that we should deport them all. You know, Australia has a very tough policy that if you arrive here with children, even if you're a good worker, even if you have, some form of, linguistics, like you speak English, but you're trying to cross the border illegally, you will be sent back. We need to adopt that policy because we just can't allow, Democrats love to say no one is above the law, and I agree. But somehow they believe that someone can just cross the border and it's completely fine. What I will do in my administration is I would up the amount of deportings. However, all the while applying for legal immigration merit-based. So if you are a hard worker, if you do have good employment in your home country, we want you here. If you're a hard worker like a manufacturer, a plumber, electrician, a doctor, a banker, a businessman, or if you speak English, we want you here. Those are the kinds of people that stimulate our economies, not people who are going to come over here and suckle off of our entitlement system. Those entitlement systems, which I believe are way too much, but if we're going to have them, then they should only go to people that were born here, that need that entitlement, and don't come here from other countries trying to suckle off and not pay taxes on benefits that they haven't received.
I have a little bit of a different opinion, but I will keep that to myself.
Hey,
I agree with most of that, other than the speaking English part.
Well, no. Okay, so let me clarify this, and I think this is important. It's two of the same. So it's right. If you speak English, or if you don't speak English, but you're a hard worker, you'll be given the same amount of preference as someone who doesn't have that same record but does speak English. Because my immigration policies are America first, right? My whole administration, America first. And someone who speaks English, even though they might not be a harder worker, but someone who speaks English would be better for Americans, for the people that were born here, the people that we serve first, the people that are electing my opponents or myself, mind you, should have people in here who will benefit them, like harder workers or people who can speak the same language.
Listen, no. Listen. If let's say we have an American here, right? Okay, and they are sucking off food stamps and stealing like money from the government for pointless shit. But then we have like a Hispanic man or like another, I don't know, someone who doesn't speak English, and they come here to work and get money for their family. You're saying there's no difference, or there's a different like?
I'm saying there's a difference.
Right. So I think what we're looking for is people who want to work
there is a
and get money for their families and the economy, other than people who are sucking off from food stamp. Okay, good, because I didn't want to like. I wasn't allowing.
No. I just said that if you come here to work and you have worked in your home country and you do have stable employment, then you will be given preferential treatment over anyone because we want you here. We want people who are going to come stimulate our economy.
Right. Okay. Fine.
All right. As you know, ISIS has been a big threat to the United States. Right after President Hay got elected, ISIS just did a horrible thing where they burned people from the LGBT community alive in cars. How will you address the problems of ISIS, Chase?
I think the foolishness of previous administrations was that they exposed their plan. You know, if you look on some of my opponents' websites, they talk about their plan to defeat ISIS. Last time I checked, the way you win a battle isn't shouting your plan to defeat the enemy. The way is doing it covertly, working with your generals, working with people that are going to be able to take out the enemy. That's how I'm going to do it. Now, like I said, I can't state the exact way I'm going to do it, but I've spoken with generals during my time in the Senate who will be able to assist me in getting rid of them. But the point is that we need to get tough and take this as the threat that they are. And Maddie, if you want to add something.
I just feel like there should be more of a protective right for the LGBT plus community, in my opinion. Especially in places where there's a death penalty for that. I feel like that's very wrong to do.
Yes, and alongside that, I will
Also,
begin an international. Oh yeah, here you can go.
something that I would like to talk about is the discussion of child marriage, which I feel like should be outlawed because that's absolutely disgusting, and it horrifies me to believe that young girls are being forced into getting married at such a young age, which is absolutely just gross and wrong.
Hey, look, you guys got to take a trip to tell the leaders that that's wrong. The leaders of that country that that's wrong.
Well, as a matter of
If
fact,
you
that's
guys
what I
get
was going to
elected.
say is that under my administration, we'll begin an international effort to legalize homosexuality and illegalize child marriages in every country that we possibly can. Because no one should be burned alive, thrown off a roof just because of their sexuality, and no one should be forced to marry as a child before your brain has really fully developed and you fully understand what it means to be in marriage. To be in a marriage, or of course being sold off for sex slavery.
All right. So let's go to next question. Education. Do you have any reforms for our education system?
Well, actually, I have an idea.
Yeah.
I think we should, in the upcoming year, we should start teaching the old ways and get rid of Common Core. And you asked us why. Also, I have an opinion on AIS rules. I feel like if you have a very significant improvement from grades, however long you got put in AIS, to 8th grade, going into 9th grade, you should not be put in extended classes. Only if there's a significant difference from the time you got put and the time you're about to go in high school. Why I say this? Well, because you're holding kids back from getting into their electives that they want to be in. And that's a big thing for me. Like, I feel like that should be established and changed, and Common Core should be gone. And all these types of books and stuff that they're using to teach children, I don't agree with it at all. I feel like it should be the old way.
Yeah. In the state of New York, they have Common Core. The worst, they have a whole regents.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me take you back to 1979 when Jimmy Carter. This is the one accomplishment I guess we can point to, is the foundation of the Department of Education. What happened subsequently over the next decade? Overall well-roundedness, grades, averages, all things like that decreased by around 35%. We take it to around 2012 when Obama, really puts in the Common Core enforcement. It increases overall well-roundedness decreases another like 15%. What I would do under my presidency is I would get rid of the Department of Education and all standards, because I believe that states and municipalities can find better education solutions like trade schools, like labor schools in these inner urban cities to be able to provide, better educations for the exact people that need that. Tailor the education to fit the population. That's a little slogan I like to say. And also instead turn it into the Federal Education Grant Commission. And what that will do is it's a commission that will grant different grants, sums of money to schools that just cannot operate, that their states don't give them enough funding. So we still have the grants and the funding of the Department of Education towards schools that need that grant. However, we don't have the enforcement of Common Core. We don't have the enforcement of overall federal education standards that completely kill our economy and make our children a lot less educated.
All right, let's go to our next question. The whole theme of Robert Sanders' campaign is that he is the only candidate to stand for the workers, and he will be the president for the working class and the working people. Do you have any disagreements over that?
I obviously do. I don't believe standing for a higher minimum wage than we already have, which automatically leads to unemployment, is standing for the workers. I don't believe that heightening taxes on businesses that create jobs hardly stands for the workers. When he says that he stands for the workers, he means that he stands for free things where you don't have to work for them, for people who aren't even employed. You know, if you look at his platform, he talks about Medicare for all, giving everybody free health care insurance, right? But you know how much that's going to cost? It's going to cost $39 trillion just in 10 years. Just in 10 years, and then it's going to increase after that when we have more people to the population, and then there's more children. It's unaffordable. It's going to bankrupt this country, and it's not helping the working class. You know who it's helping? It's helping the Hollywood elites who can feel good about themselves, who despite them being able to afford and not having to worry about employment, can feel good about themselves, who can increase in their profits, making virtual signaling films about these issues.
All right, let's go.
It helps the elites, not the working class. My policies, lower taxes, lower regulations, more jobs, they help the working class.
All right, next question. This has been, a constant debate that's existed. What is your stance on right to work?
I fully support the right to work law. I do not believe that the union should have power or guaranteed power over state law. That's completely absurd. A private organization or a public organization should have rights to dictate what laws a bunch of citizens have in a state or city or country.
All right.
And as a matter of fact, I would just like to say, as Attorney General of the state of Texas, before, of course, I ran for Senate, I fully fought against and made sure that right to work law never saw the light of day in the state of Texas.
All right. I mean, don't they weaken the unions? I mean, I'm not going to be on a side here, but I'm just being devil's advocate here.
Yes, they weaken the power of the unions. They don't have dominion over state law.
Yeah, but a common argument of people opposed to right to work is that unions fight for higher wages and that they need that power. But
actually, higher wages, of course, in a company occur to good working employees. The unions, as we've seen, have actually increased unemployment. And when you see on average studies, what happens is that people unionize, and the company doesn't want to have to pay these absurd union dues, nor do they want to have to sign into complete backbreaking contracts. So they just lay them off and bring new people. So we don't want to force that, of course, on our government and people who just shouldn't have to follow the law of the unions.
All right. Do you support public school vouchers?
I do.
What is okay? Never mind. I'm not gonna ask it then.
All right. Now, let's go to our next question. Environment. Do you believe that climate change is a hoax, or if so, if it's not a hoax, how do you go about dealing with it?
I do not believe it's a hoax, but I do believe it's being greatly amplified by the media. And, people like my opponent will say they'll do whatever. Climate change is the greatest threat facing our nation. The United States emits less than 1% of total pollution, barely contributing to climate change. Around 1 in 15,000 molecules, in the air are carbon dioxide, right? It's barely an issue really facing us. However, I do acknowledge that it is occurring. So what I would do is, of course, allow the free market and subsidize the growth of nuclear energy, more cleaner substances for us to power different, for power, for our cars, electricity, power our household appliances, nuclear energy instead, of course, of fossil fuels. That way we can really combat climate change. But remember, we have to get tougher on China. China is what we need to worry about in this situation because they emit around 30% of total pollution. So let's get tougher on China, and let's not allow for their market to completely regulate for the federal government to completely regulate the market out of existence. Because a lot of what these politicians will be able to do, right, like my opponent, Robert Sanders, is they just want it as a reason, right? They want it as a reason to take over the entire economy. They want to say, oh, we need to do this. We need to get rid of businesses. We need to get rid of fossil fuel. We need to ban cars. We need to ban airplanes. We can only travel by train. We only can go through bicycles, right? Because of climate change. But what that does is it controls your lives. It controls the entire economy. We can't allow for the entire economy and our entire lives to be controlled by the government under the name of climate change.
All right. Next question. Let's go to.
Hey guys.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
It's the writers.
All right. Let's go to.
He's doing a debate.
Yeah. All right. I lost my train of thought here. Let's go to. Weed. Would you legalize weed?
Yes, I would. I would also release any drug offenders. Well, I would release any weed offenders from prison federally.
All right.
Maddie, do you want to comment on this? Do you support it? You there?
Yes.
All right. So, let's go to our next question. What do you think about Justice Pirro being on the Supreme Court?
I enjoy her presence. If it were up to me, I'd actually appoint my predecessor, Ted Cruz, to the seat. And if there is one open, he would be my first choice, just because he's someone that I really admire. And I know he retired for private practice, but if he was interested, I would appoint him to that seat. But I think Miss Pirro will be a fantastic judge or justice.
Yeah, but she's a Justice Bureau. All right. So, in the state of New Hampshire, Governor Sanders has raised, has created new taxes, and his, defense to that is that, it created better quality education. Do you agree with creating a separate tax along with a property tax for education?
We already have a tax for education. It's called property tax. And guess what?
Yeah, but
he
added a new tax for education.
Yeah, there's already one of that. It's literally called property tax. 75% of your property taxes is already going towards education. And I would like to speak to the voters in Vermont, who I'm sure are regretting their vote going towards Robert Sanders. It is time for you to recognize that you can't allow someone like Robert Sanders to be in office to tax the hell out of you like they're doing in your state, right? You already are paying property tax. It's already doing great for your education system. As a matter of fact, Vermont is one of the best states for education. Before this even was in place, what he should be doing is he should get rid of Common Core education standards. You should be trying to allow for more freedom across municipalities instead of passing massive packages like this with a bunch of regulations on education. So no, I completely disagree with this move, and I think it is a disgusting power grab and cash grab by Mr. Sanders.
All right. So I don't really like to reflect on this, but it was a very disturbing Pittsburgh Republican convention that almost damaged the campaign. How will you deal with sexual harassment, in your administration?
Well, the unfortunate thing is that Chris, before this, and I were good friends, but I never knew he would cause issues like this. And I'm glad that it didn't end up damaging my campaign. As a matter of fact, the person that he assaulted is actually on the stage with me right now. And you know, I believe that having someone who had to survive like that with me on a ticket, who can tell me about the awful experience she had herself, will be able to advise me in the best way possible to assist the people who have already done through this. You know, I'm actually before I won the Senate seat, I volunteered as a pro bono attorney for victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. I understand the ins and outs of the issue of this, and I will go at full force ensuring that, and I'll instruct my attorney general to create harsher laws on sexual abusers, create mandatory prison sentences if you commit rape, if you sexually harass or assault.
All right. Next question. What do you think about affirmative action? Will you repeal affirmative action?
I will get rid of affirmative action. It is a terrible policy. Listen, I believe in equality. I don't believe in preference off of race. Now, if the predecessors who founded that bill really believed in what they said, they wouldn't have run it in place. I believe the best student with the best grade should get into the best college, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Well, I say that if a student who is very talented in the arts but doesn't get the best grades, which I mean by best grades as in B's to C's but not F's, should deserve, a rightful place in a good college, because not everything relies on grades. I feel like that needs to be established. I mean, your whole life and your whole thing.
No. This is not about like theater and stuff like that. This is just
I'm
about
not saying
like,
it does. I'm not
this is
saying.
basically
I'm
just
not,
equal
I'm not
employment
saying it
and
does,
schooling
but
opportunities
if you
among
are-
race.
If you're an A+ student, correct, and you have a bad record, why should a college accept you?
All right.
Well, of course, colleges, and you know what, Maddie, I think we also furthermore agree on this. I don't know why you're saying this is, if a college wants to accept you, then sure, they should go ahead. But I think federally mandated affirmative action or affirmative action at all, based on race, based on sex, is awful. It's abhorrent and it's deplorable.
All right.
Next question.
So Tucker Carlson just endorsed you, and Tucker Carlson has received a lot of controversy. He said, quote, European culture is superior to Native American culture, and that is perceived as white supremacist, even though I personally don't believe it. But let's just say it is. So do you believe what he's saying is wrong?
Well, for us to analyze this, let's present the differences between the two cultures when, of course, Columbus and colonized America. The Native Americans participated in cannibalism, raids, murder, just disgusting, abhorrent things. Now, well, yes, a lot of people like to tout them, and I'm sure my opponent will tout them as some sort of peaceful communities. They really weren't. However, on the European side, it was far more civilized. It was far more participatory. You had laws. You had laws. You had economy. You had people that were participating in job businesses, and they brought that over to be able to create more economic opportunity, of course, in this new found land called America. And it generally is more superior to the natives, as they had far more developed medicine. They had far more developed economic solutions and agriculture solutions.
Your VP candidate would like to.
JP, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions for me? Because I gotta go.
We're actually getting into the closing statements here.
Okay. Can I give my closing statement and then I'll go?
Yeah.
As a woman of color and a woman that is a woman, I say that I think it would be a good move for Chase's whole thing here, and it would be a good representation of what we're trying to include in America, and therefore I think I will bring a good change to this whole community, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
All right. Chase Stevens.
Tonight, if you watched last night's or the night before's town hall with Robert Sanders, I'm sure you saw two distinctly different points of view. The first one, you saw more of the same, but more extreme, right? You saw nearly socialist policy. Socialism doesn't help America. The free markets do. But on this hand, you saw someone who's actually going to stir change, someone who's going to cut taxes, not for billionaires, not for the upper middle class, but for everybody. No matter who you are, you're getting a tax cut in my administration. In my tax bill, guess what's going to happen, right? We're going to see wages increase by 16%, business growth 13%. We're going to see revenue increase by 13% as well in 10 years. We're going to see net 5 million jobs created just from my tax policy alone. We're going to take China head on, something that my opponent is too scared to do. We're going to take it right on. We're not going to allow complete government control and tyranny over the economy just for some issue that people are maximizing and fear-mongering about. No. We are going to make this country great again. We're going to take down ISIS, something that my opponents are far too scared to do, but we're going to do everything respectfully. What we're going to do is we're going to make America strong again. We're going to make it bold again. We're going to make America the best economic country in the world again. We're going to make America beat China again. And you know what? We're going to make America great again. Thank you very much.
All right, that ends our town hall here.